which I understand very much. Now, and also I think ASEAN labors under some self-inflicted shortcomings by designating milestones which perhaps no other regional grouping will even think of doing because it can be too ambitious, especially for a grouping like ASEAN or the ARF. In 1995, for instance, ASEAN and its partner members in the ASEAN Regional Forum declared, which is very textbook-like, you know, three-stage evolution process for managing security issues. First, confidence building. Second, preventive diplomacy. And then conflict resolution. And then stage 3, we amended it because we thought it was too much. We amended it to something rather vague, elaboration of approaches to conflict. Now, I think we should not have committed ourselves to this. We should have committed ourselves to something broad, like ASEAN, within ASEAN, instead of so straight-jacketed thing in ARF. So, because we did that, this three-stage evolution, we found ourselves 21 years after the establishment of ARF, we are still mired in the confidence-building stage and maybe some tentative steps in the direction of preventive diplomacy. And in the meantime, in fact, the opposite has happened. The security situation in the Asia-Pacific region has deteriorated perceptibly. And with ASEAN and the ARF, to me, largely a non-player, besides the platform, which is still very important platform, bringing people together. Without this platform, can you imagine what the Asia-Pacific region would be? So that we shouldn't minimize that. But at the same time, we cannot but note with dismay the downward trend in the security situation in the region, which some of my previous panelists have already described. So some of the factors, again, they have touched. I'll go very briefly. One is the revival as China as a major economic and political power. Please remember, I used the word revival. China was there before, until the 15th century. So this is a revival of China. And then Beijing's desire to free itself from perceived containment by the US and its allies, especially in the first island chain. This has been a second factor and continues to be a very strong motivating factor. The US pivot or rebalance, I'll go quickly here, perceived Chinese assertiveness in the East China Sea, South China Sea. This is how the other countries perceive it. Japan's reinterpretation of Article 9 post-war constitution and its forging of a pointedly anti-China security ties with various countries, including Philippines, Australia, China. India's Look East policy, and it's raising a strategic profile in the region and establishing links, particularly with US and Japan, Russia's renewed interest, and the increasing military expenditures and acquisitions by a number of countries. These are some of the factors that have contributed to the deteriorating situation. And of course, last, what some of us have, including my colleague from China and Tanti Rastam and all that, is Donald Trump. This Donald Make America Again Trump. Now, he has added a major dose of uncertainty, some alarm to this toxic mix with his telephone conversation with the president of Taiwan. And then he has made remarks indicating that he would probably be positively disposed. He's on record in newspapers, positively disposed towards Japan and South Korea acquiring nuclear weapons. He has said this, and but of course, while he made all these remarks, we have to wait until he becomes president. What really happens, we cannot prejudge things. Now, I'd like to conclude by, in my paper, some suggestions on how we could enhance the performance and effectiveness of ASEAN and the ARF. My previous colleagues, panel and Ambassador Ong have touched upon this. The most important, of course, is cohesion and unity among ASEAN. We must remain, because otherwise we will count for little. That is fundamental, and I take that for assumption. But among the things I suggest, first, establish the High Council. A High Council is provided for in the Treaty of Amity, but we haven't really come round to it. Yeah, I think we have, of course, the rules of procedure, etc. But I think one of the things we could do is do what we said we want to do so many years ago, which is establish the High Council. And incidentally, in the treaty and in the rules of procedure, it says it should be a continuing body. That means it must be there all the time. Although it may be activated only now and then, that council is there, but we have not established that council. That would be helpful if in some dispute settlement mechanism. But I also say that council, High Council, may also have limited efficacy because it is made up of ministers. Once you have ministers, it's very political. So what we should think about is to have something like the ICJ for ASEAN, maybe an ASEAN Court of Justice, which consists of high legal figures from each ASEAN country. That could be more effective than ministerial High Council. But this, for an organization like ASEAN, which is quite not so integrated, could involve a leap of faith. But if we want ASEAN to be a bit more credible, this is what some of the things we can use. But you establish a court of justice doesn't mean you must always go to this court of justice. The Treaty of Amity itself, ASEAN Charter, etc., in fact, encourages countries in ASEAN, besides going to its own institutions, to also go outside. So it doesn't prevent us from going outside. Third, let me jump again. I think ASEAN should take a more proactive, and this I think our keynote speaker, Dr. Surya, also spoke about this. We should take a more active, proactive role in Asia-Pacific security issues and hotspots, and take more active measures to try to promote trust, moderate tension, mediate disputes. ASEAN's approach, to me, for the time being, appears to be, including through the RF, appears to be one of passive interest, contentment with issuing standard statements, articulating standard positions on regional and global security issues such as the Korean Peninsula. You just come out with the same, diplomatic statements on this thing without denoting anything more active. Next, fifth, appoint suitable former statesmen and individuals of caliber and international repute to perform a moderating or mediating role in hotspots or where tensions appear to be building. This especially can be done through the ARF register of experts and eminent persons. At the moment, this register is all experts, no eminent persons. I think we could have former prime ministers, presidents, etc., who don't have to attend these ARF meetings, expert meeting, but who are there on call. Also, we don't have to have them on the register anyway, but we must think about their availability, not only in this region, ASEAN or Asia-Pacific region, throughout the world. We have so many statesmen of caliber which we can tap to do our work, ARF's work, ASEAN's work, which we have not been doing. This leads me to the next issue, which is North Korean issue. I think we should play a more active role there. Previously, Malaysia used to host talks, North Korea, South Korea, quietly, in Kuala Lumpur, etc. Now we don't do. But I think it should be a higher level by ASEAN, ARF, impartial, neutral, third-party mediation on the North Korean issue. Now, the six-party talks, as we all know, is 10 years old, is not getting anywhere. And they are focused on the nuclear weapons. Actually, nuclear weapons is just a symptom. The real issue is security for North Korea as well as the others. North Korea went nuclear because it wanted to defend itself against nuclear weaponed United States, etc. So that is how the nuclear problem arose. But the basic problem is security. Security for North Korea and all the others, legitimate concerns. So we must address the legitimate concerns. And I think ASEAN, being non-interested a non-interested party, directly interested, can play a role, a neutral role. Finally, I think we should launch an independent study By independent, I mean not government, yeah? Independent study on the salience of bilateral military alliances in promoting Asia-Pacific security in an age of globalization, close economic independence. How useful are these bilateral military alliances, and the feasibility of transforming these divisive, antagonistic post-war military alliances into more inclusive security arrangements based on mutual security, all our security. And this is the game changer for the Asia-Pacific community, and it must be in the best long-term interest of all countries in the region, large as well as small. It must take care of the security considerations of small countries as well as large countries. And I think I'll stop there. My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Johar. He's a former chairman of the Chief Executive Institute of Strategic and International Studies, Malaysia. I think he gave us, since the historical development of the ASEAN for so long, it's about 50, 60 years ago, and up until now. The one thing that I suspect that all of the panel since this morning and now, talking about Donald Trump, and everybody interested in, I don't know, Donald Trump will become a next president of the United States, and he has never been involved with politics, before, but today he is in the forefront of the issue that we are talking about. So I'll go next to Professor Kokolai from Myanmar, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, okay. Yeah, just no. Yeah. Sawasdee krap. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to the organizer of this very interesting seminar, especially to Professor Prapat for inviting me to this very distinguished university in Thailand, founded by one of the greatest statesmen, scholar, and patriot, Mr. Priti Promyam. And my theme is that the major title, the Global-ASEAN and Security Architecture. So it may be, I think, doubling years ahead of our ASEAN security. So my logic is that ASEAN still an oasis in the desert or a safe house in the wilderness up to the present. You can see everywhere in the world the hotspots like Middle East, like in Afghanistan, and also in South Asia, India, Pakistan, conflicts, and also migration crisis in Europe, and also political instability in the United States now, and also in Asia Pacific, the Korean Peninsula issues, and China, Japan, and China, US, and South China Sea. So still, ASEAN is still walking strong with more than 600 million people, populations, and a 2.4 trillion economy. But I think these situations, comfortable situations, I worry that can be maintained in the near future because of the global security impacts. That's why I would like to present my talks in the 4 parts of the contents: the security analysis, regional security instruments or platforms, and potential threat assessments, and my own comments. But thanks to previous panelists, including our honorable keynote speaker, Dr. Surya, so most of the security analysis I can skip because everyone knows about that, especially in the major power relations between big powers, as I've shown in these slides. There's so many strategic relations issues around our regions. United States versus China, Russia, China versus US, Japan, and Korean Peninsula issues, and Indo-Pacific regions. But I would like to elaborate a little about the regional security issues. South China issues I can skip because many panelists have explained about that. But security is including our other sectors. That's why we have to emphasize on comprehensive security, including non-traditional security issues. I think one of the immediate threats to our region security architecture is terrorism. As we all know that IS was being defeated in Middle East, and they will find other areas to hide or to, I think, to reorganize this trend. And in our regions, there are many areas they can use as the hideouts. As we all know that in last April, the IS declared the Southeast Asian province based on the Abu Sayyaf groups in southern Philippines. And their operating areas include Malaysia, Indonesia, and also in southern Philippines, the Triangle area. And even in our country, my country, Myanmar, and our western border adjacent to Bangladesh, we are facing such sort of the terrorist threat. Now, in the international media, there's so many news about the so-called Rohingya and the accusations of the ethnic cleansings or genocides or the gang rapes or like that. Actually, it's a huge conspiracy. But the instigator of that problems are one of the religious-based militant groups closely related with international terrorist outfits like the LET, Lashkar-e-Taiba, who's managed to make an attack in Mumbai in 2008 or like that. They were trained in Afghanistan and also Kashmir. But the thing is that few people knows about that because of the fabricated and false news spreading in international media. So that makes some sort of impact on, even in the ASEAN regional unity. There's some sort of the worry from ASEAN countries, which has a large number of the Muslim populations. So that the terrorisms are now an immediate threat to our regional security and our regional unity. And also, needless to say, the drugs and also human trafficking and migrant laborers are still a big issues in non-traditional security. The underlying cause of these problems are actually a socio-economic gap within our ASEAN. So we need to tackle these issues. At the same time, we have to face other traditional security threats. And also, we have domestic traditional and non-traditional security issues like insurgency and domestic political issues and other non-traditional security issues, and also socio-economic issues that can threaten our developments and peace and stability in the regions. So, how about our countermeasure to such traditional and non-traditional security threats? We have three communities, and especially I would like to emphasize on the traditional security, like the ASEAN community on the political and security. We already have many panelists are mentioned about the ARF and also AMMs and ADMMs plus. But as we all know that ASEAN is actually organized by the meetings and summits, not like the EU. We don't have ASEAN Parliament or ASEAN Council like EU. So that we base on dialogues and negotiations and consensus. That makes a lot of difficulty to implement or to establish a mechanism like Professor Hassan mentions. So we are quite strong in policy, but in implementations, we don't have much energy. But the thing is that ASEAN is the only institutions in the region, especially in the East Asia, that can organize almost all of the major powers on the negotiation tables. We have soft power. We are not hard power. We should use such a soft power in tackling the regional security issues, like Professor Hassan mentioned earlier, that in Korean Peninsula, six-party talks actually over. And who will be between